Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Well, I hope that you had a good Sabbath rest and a good afternoon. And it's so good to spend the last minutes of the Sabbath day in the house of the Lord. It's so good to close this day together, learning from His Word and fellowshipping with each other. Well, the bad news is that this is the last presentation of this seminar, Discover the Law of Life. I assume that most of you have discovered that law, but it's not just enough to discover it. There is the need to apply it in our own life. Well, tonight, as we will be listening to Dr. Mueller for the last time during these presentations, we will learn again how to apply this law of life in our own lives. Dr. Mueller has been with us, for those of you who are here for the very first time. He was with us for the last almost 10 days, and every night we had a presentation. And many of you had a chance to talk to him privately, and I truly believe that the conversation with him, the counsel that you received from him was very helpful to you. Also, he offered a set of 3 DVDs about anxiety, conflict, and counseling. And if you didn't have the chance to get one of those, he doesn't have any more of those sets right here, but he promised that he can provide those to you, and you need to talk to me, and you will get those DVDs for a donation of any amount. Well, with all of this being said, let's get started. And as we usually did, we've been so blessed and so spoiled every night to have some musical selections. Now, I think that we have a bunch of musical selections for tonight, and we are like in the biblical times. You know, what is the best is at the very end. So I'm so glad that you are here with us tonight, because it's not that just you are going to listen to the best presentation of Dr. Mueller, but you also are going to listen to some of the good or the best musical selections we had for you during this seminar. So we'll start with a young artist. Scott is going to play the violin for us. Let's listen to Scott as he plays softly and tenderly. Jesus is calling. Maybe he's calling for you, my friend. Just listen to his music. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Scott. That was awesome. Great. Since this seminar was all about discovering the law of life, and we discovered that without love, without taking the divine love and sharing the love, life is not possible. Manuel is gonna sing for us tonight. Well, his song, well, he prepared a song that is related to this presentations. Is all about love. I invite Manuel now to come and sing for us a song about love.
Jesus comes with proud to gladden when love shines in. Every life that who can sadden when love shines in. Love will teach us how to pray. Love will drive the gloom away. Turn our darkness into days when love shines in. When love shines in. When love shines in. How the heart is tuned to singing when love shines in. When love shines in. When love shines in. Joy and peace to others bringing when love shines in. Darkest sorrow will grow brighter when love shines in. And the heaviest burden lighter when love shines in. 'Tis the glory that will throw light to show us that we go. Oh, the hush of blessing, oh, when love shines in. When love shines in. When love shines in. How the heart is tuned to singing when love shines in. When love shines in. When love shines in. Joy and peace to others bringing when love shines in.
And now let's listen to 3 violins and a cello and a piano as they're going to play for us tonight. as I'm looking at time, well, don't blame Dr. Mueller for finishing late tonight. It's not his fault. Okay, Dr. Mueller will be listening to you for one more time this evening, as you will share with us again the same message that God has asked you, has equipped you with, to share it with us.
So good evening. Good evening. The week just went fast, did it? And we are here at the last presentation, and I hope we can conclude everything very nice and go home and put it into action. So let's start with the 4 foundations that I tried to share this whole week, and to see if we understood what they are. The first is the fundamental law of all beings. You know which is that law now? It is the universe, the fundamental law that nothing can exist from itself except God. That's why everything must take in order to give. And the secondary laws: time, temperature, pressure, space, and speed. But what we are interested is in the fundamental law. And as I shared yesterday and the night before, you now relate the fundamental law with the 10 Commandments. Because the 10 Commandments speak about taking and giving. You see, when Apostle Paul wrote about the 10 Commandments, about the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, he said that the Jewish people didn't understand the spirit of the law, they kept the letter of it. So we know that the law governs relationships for humans that have a spirit, and for angels and all beings that have a relationship. They can only satisfy their spiritual need from and through a relationship. And they need how many relationships to satisfy the need? At least. Now you got into the tricky question again. You need at least 2. Because you need one to take and one to give. But in the deception, you need only one, because you give to one and take from one. That's why we think we only need one relationship. But the whole heaven is so made that it is a circle, as we have seen. And so in that circle, every created being must take from one place and must give into another. And the 2 places cannot be the same. So that's why we need at least 2 relationships. And the relationship must be how? They must be pure. Pure to take and pure to give. Yes? They can never be mixed. You can never take, or you can never give that what you need to take from that place. So that's why we must know that is where we take, we cannot give. When we eat the bread, we could not give to the bread how much? Nothing. When we drink its water, how much do we do? And we find in the Bible that great Bible verse in Jeremiah 2 where God says, my people make a double sin. They forget me, the well of water, and make themselves wells that cannot keep the water. I sometimes say to my patients when I have a bottle that is empty, I said, how much water can your husband give you? How much love does he have? We must, so he has nothing, except he takes and gives it. And when he gives it to you, from whom does it come? From God, from somebody else. Because as we are a channel, we can never give anything from ourselves. So the law teaches us. But this law also shows that God is totally unselfish. He does nothing at any time for himself, because he needs nothing, and he created everything in his image according to this law with the purpose to give. When we cannot give, then that means we think it comes from us. So I hope you understand, when you have other gods, you have them for which purpose? To take or to give? Where do you break the commandments? At the taking. When you make yourself images to bow down, why do you have them? To give or to take? To take. When you bear another name, when you have a false identity, when you not honor the name that you were named with, what do? You take from the wrong source. So the first 3 commandments prohibit the taking from another source than God. When you kill, where do you break the commandments? In killing or in not taking from God? So you take it, so you kill because you don't take from God. When you commit adultery because you don't take from God. When you steal because when you lie, when you covet. So I hope you understand that the letter of the law just shows where you take from. Did that get into our minds? So God could have given here 1,000 commands, and they would have said always the same thing. But he concluded in 10 precepts everything that was needed for us to understand that it's just about taking and giving. This is the spirit of the law. Because we have, I hope, proven to this seminar that every issue of man does not come from giving, but from taking. If you don't want anything from another human, you are in peace with him. Yes? But if you have expectations, and it's not wrong to have expectations if it is a business, like the family. If you have expectation in the family for the purpose of the family, it's not wrong, but it's wrong if it's for you. You see, my helper in my practice, the nurse that works there in the practice, she works for God. I mean, she is my employee. I have to pay her. Yeah? So when she does not do the work right, I have expectation that she should do the work right. But for whom? For me or for God? For God, because it's God's business. So am I upset with her? No, I'm just very relaxed and say, look, you're doing an issue, and who will pay it? You must pay it. Yeah, so you can be very, very nice and even very, very clear in those things that are business. So we have to stay to the situations because we have to clear situations, but it must always be unpersonal. It's not about me. That's why when it is about me, it is because I live from her. And so she can get me upset, and then I get sick because she doesn't do what I expect her to do because it's about me. But if it's God's business, and God gave her to me to work with me, so it's fine with me if she does make mistakes, because who will pay for it? She will pay. Yeah? And she might learn out of her mistakes, and I might learn out of her mistakes as well, if I take it personally or not. So we have one commandment in all the 10 commandments. That is a commandment that says that we are God's creature. We are His children. And because we are made by Him, we keep the 7th day, that's the birthday of the earth, so to say, that's our birthday. That's why it is the center of the law because it proves who is my identity. If God is my identity, the day that God gave me to rest or to worship or even to work for certain issues is in honor of Him. This is why the fourth commandment is in the law, the one commandment. It's just, I compare it with the tree of good and evil. It's that one test by which everyone in the last time will be tested. It's the law that you must take from God because He's bread and water. But you don't take for yourself, you take to give. And the first you must give is your parents. You must be totally bound to God to honor your parents. It's the highest, the most highest thing when you have no expectation from your parents. When you can love them and say, I don't need them. But if you still need them, and I have patients who come and say, I don't know what I will do when my mother dies. But the patient is 50. I said, do you still need mom? Yes, you need mom if you don't have God. We will never get rid of our dependency on mom except through the grace of God. Because it is expectation for us. And how much do our parents owe us? Nothing. Nothing. Let us remember that. No one, neither our parents, but on our parents, since as we were children, we had to take from them. They were replacing God as we were children. We must come to the place where they are not at the taking place anymore, but at the giving place. So this is the one commandment with the promise of health. If we can respect our parents and honor them, we can do it with anyone. But if we don't do it with our parents, we cannot do it with anyone. This is so important to me. That's why this law is just a test. This is why even we see in psychology that almost all problems come from mother relationships. Because it's a dependency relationship. It's the most sweet relationship. And God made it to be for a while. But it should then change. That the child should have mother just to give and have no expectations. So our relationship must be clean. That is, with humans, with animals, and all around us, we just give them something. We are there for their sake, not they for our sake. Because we have God to take from. Now, I just had a patient, she got great fears, and her father was depressed, and he finally committed suicide. And then she came and said, my mom got very upset because my father committed suicide. And she got so upset she would have killed him the second time. Why did she get upset? She says, how could you do this to me? Did he do it to her? No. But you see what was in her heart? Why did she have a husband? To take or to give? I tell you, it's so hard to see when you take and when you give. It's so difficult because of our selfish nature. We don't see it. And I could speak the whole night about how we have to discover that. What kind of relationship we have. When I started to understand the law, I said, I will be there for my patient, not my patient for me. Because if I'm there for the patient, I'm independent of the patient. But if the patient is there for me, then I am dependent on them. That's why I do all my counseling from the beginning. The Lord taught me for free. And I only charge, I mean, not even me, it's in Germany everything is very regulated. The insurance pays a certain amount for a patient. You are not free to charge him anything more than that amount that is set by the law. And so you cannot really get rich like in America being a doctor. In Germany, doctors are not, they are only, they have a good reputation because being a doctor is a good thing to be, but they don't earn the money. If you want to make money, you can be a doctor in America, but if you want to make money in Germany, then you must be a businessman or doing something else. So we get that, and I take that because the practice needs to be sustained. But when I speak about love with my patients, I do not want to make myself dependent. And it was a struggle, because since the time to take with the patients to speak with them, you don't earn anything. And I had to trust God that He will take care. So it's so hard when you are in a relationship to see when you take and give. And I give you just a small example, and then we go on because we want to conclude. But the law is the center, so I hope that everyone has understood it. This gentleman, it was about 3 years ago, I think, the waiting room was quite full, and I took one patient after the other, but every time I opened the room towards the waiting room to call in the patient, there came a very difficult smell. I have a very, very sensitive nose, unfortunately. I was born like this. I can do nothing about it, but my nose is just smelling everything. And I'm immediately getting upset when I smell something that I don't like. So I was thinking, who's smelling here so bad? So finally, I greeted the man, and he came into my room, and I said, this is it. This is the man. I smell him. He was a 55 years old man, and he was sitting there on my chair there, and as an ENT, he had an infected ear, and you must go with the microscope very close to him, so you are in his neck. You say the nose is here, and you must look into the ear. And so I said to myself, I will make this fast, so that I can open the windows, and then manage it. But the man, instead of being patient when I wanted to clean his ear, he jumped away every time. So when I thought I'd get that thing out, he moved. And then you had to put your microscope again, you have to rearrange things and start again. And so I think about 10 minutes it went like this when I lost my patience. And I said to the man, I said, you must stay still. And he said, but it hurts. I said, it doesn't matter. You are not a child, you're 55 years old. And you know, when I go to the doctor, I don't give me a shot for my tooth, because I resist to that pain. And so if I resist to the pain, how many people can resist? See, you are on the level of playing God. Everyone has to have your measure. So I said to him, look, we need to treat that ear, so you must stay still. So put your hand here on this chair, you know, and keep it there so that I can pull the thing out so that it's all fine. And so he finally, we got it. Yeah, after a while, I finished. He had a hole in his drum because it was a chronic infection, and I tried to tell him, well, come next time earlier so that it doesn't get so wrong. And while he was at the door to go out of my office, I had in mind to say him, but don't go into the stall before you come to the practice, because I thought he was in a stall. Is that the right stall? When you go with where the cattle are, or the manger? Yeah, manger. Because I thought, don't go there because you bring all the smell, the barn or whatever it is. Yeah. But it was maybe urine smell or whatever it was. It was a bad smell. Now, he left. Did I treat him lovingly? Why not? You give me the diagnosis to see if you understood the law. Because you know all things happen in the taking and giving. He became what for me? I was become dependent on him for what? For taking. Because he had something in him that disturbed me, his smell. And instead of being kind and thinking, man, if this man smells so, he must have a burn on his heart. Because in love, how much smell can you resist? Yeah, the children are speaking the truth. Because love says, and we'll speak about love at the end of the presentation, love can endure all things. But which kind of love? Divine love. If it's yours, it goes until smelling, good smelling. Once the bad smelling is, it's finished. So I took from him. You see, after that, I talked to God because I always then have to analyze. I said, Lord, why did I fail? Because I realized I was unfriendly. Of course, I didn't shout with him. I was, in the borders of that kindness, but I was not loving. I did not understand him in his pain. I could have said, oh, maybe we give you some medication, so you have some pain medication, and we wait for half an hour until it works, and then we start again to do the things. But that was not in my mind, because imagine you should sit a half an hour outside there to bring the smell, so you want to just, you don't think those things consciously, but you act on them. And I usually, when you come to me and you have a hole in your drum, and you have a chronic disease there, I would ask you what kind of an issue you have in your heart. But this man, it didn't even dawn to me to ask him, because I want to get rid of it. When I analyzed myself, what I did a very most wrong thing. In how many seconds? How many minutes? Just because I made myself dependent to take. And God let me alone. He said, let him see how he works. That was one of my first revelations when I saw how easily I take from humans. How immediately I become like him. You see, you always become like the source you take from. If the patient would have been smelling good, and he would have been patient, how would I have been? The same way. The same way. But since the patient was impatient, I became impatient because I took from him. Would I have taken from God in that moment? Would I have just asked God, Lord, help me? He would have remembered me. Remember the love, the love issue, and God would have remembered me, and I immediately would have known what to do. Because God doesn't tell us what to do, He did not make our mind and our soul to command us. He gave us principles. We must run it ourselves. We must reason about it. So, I hope that's enough for now. You always know now, if you get upset on the humans, what did you make with him? You took from him. And even if it's all well, you took from him, maybe. But then you cannot see it. But when you get upset, you see it most. If someone upsets you, then you know you took from him because he's also not very nice and kind. So I hope this should be enough. Now, the second thing that we studied was the human structure. So the human structure is made out of two elements. A physical one, that is the body, that is chemistry, and the spirit. And since the body is all together in the cortex, we have above the cortex the spirit. The spirit is only on cortex level. And cortex, together with the spirit, make the soul. So that's why we have the soul in our mind, and because there is the connection between the spirit and the body. So we know that we have also a subconscious, and in that subconscious we have to put all the things in gain, indifference, and loss. And God made us to always achieve the gain, and that we have a yes, and He made us to always avoid the loss, and for that He gave us a no. And it's always when we lose the no that we can get sick. It's always when we cannot say no to loss. And that's, you know, the deception that comes there. And you know, the deception comes from identity, and identity is the decisive element in the human structure, because out of that comes trust, motivation, action, gain, loss, decision, and that what we then do. If we are a creature of God, everyone does what he wants. If we are gods, we do what we don't want. Are you amazed about that? If we would be creatures, we would just do what we want, because God put in our will the good things to do. We would take from Him the good things, and we exactly do what God made us able to do. But if we are gods, we want to control others. Can you do that? So you do what you don't want. I got upset because I wanted on this patient. Did I get upset because I chose to? Yes, I did it. If you will say that is a choice, but it was without a choice. I was not conscious that I was taking, and I did not that what I want. And you will see in your life many examples that you do the same. So we see that the structure is spirit and body, and it begins in identity, and it goes trust, motivation, decision, electricity, cortex, limbic system, emotions come back, the first feedback to the spirit, and then the bone marrow, from the bone marrow all organs, then the food, water, air circle starts in, and then it comes back to limbic system, to cortex, and to identity. If identity would be right, all functions would be normal. Identity wrong, all functions are wrong or not normal. That we live is a miracle. It's just by grace. So the main issue in the structure is that we understand the starting point of the structure is identity. If identity would be correct, then everything would be correct. So, because everything starts out from there. That's an overview of the structure. I hope it was not too fast. Then we have needs. We meet energy and basic needs. And here we have, God made us out of two elements, and He gave needs to the spirit: love, righteousness, truth, freedom, security, peace, well-being. And He gave the body the need of electricity that makes the spirit, and the chemistry that is coming out from the earth. So we need two sources to satisfy the needs: nature and God. And we have to satisfy it according to the law, take in order to give. So the spiritual needs, we must be aware, have only one source where we can take them. And the physical one, did you ever treat yourself and not eat out of nature? You have no choice. We all must live physically from nature. But spiritually we do not live from God, because if we would live from God, we would have no issues, we would not be sick, we would have no conflicts, no fights, no stress. Everything would be fine if God would be our source for our spiritual needs. Now, then we have function. So the needs put the structure into function, so that the structure can fulfill its purpose. So where is the button where you start the engine humanity? Where is the button where you start the function? It is trust. Okay? Identity determines, but identity is something that is there. It doesn't move. You are a child of God or not. But as you, and we will see a little bit later, it's a more complex slide, but I still say I will share it a little bit with you. So here is the button, is if we trust the right source, then the engine will work well. So trust is that what determines then the functioning. But we know that trust is dependent on identity. So that's why we need the structure and the function to work together. So we know that Adam and Eve trusted God, and every human being must do anything that he does out of trust. You can never do anything without trusting. So when they took away the trust from God, they had to trust another one, they had to trust the devil, and so humanity became miserable, poor, blind, and naked, because they cannot go back to God, they cannot take from God, they must take without choice from humans and animals. You must attach to someone, you have no choice not to attach. But you always get through the wrong identity, you cannot attach to God, you must attach to the wrong source. This is not a choice. Attachment goes automatically to the wrong choice. And so, if you're a God, what are your expectations from others? My spiritual needs need to be satisfied what others are doing. You think it's important for you if others think right or wrong from you, do you? Is it important to think what others think about you? No, it should just be important that you give a good influence, that they see God in you, yeah, that they see God's love in you, so that the name of God should not be misrepresented. So it's important that we give a good influence, but for us, what others think, what others do, is not important. So if others lie about you, how do you react? They don't lie about me. Yes? It hurts you for whom?
For God.
For God, but not for you. So they must be alive. To do it, still need the dead. Why do we mourn our dead? Yes, death is something that is opposite to life. But we should agree with God when He puts someone to rest. Because we don't need any dead people for us. There might be a loss for God's service, there might be a loss for the church, there might be a loss for the business, but it's never a loss for you. Easy?
Not easy.
No easy. Because we are sitting on the throne and we demand that the dead should be alive for us. And I can tell you hundreds or thousands of stories, because I spoke with I don't know how many thousand people, and it comes out at the same issues. I need to be loved, respected, honored, praised, and so on. Others are not allowed to do me wrong, lie, betray, beat, or steal. Others, I judge others and condemn them when they are not resisting to pain like I can resist to pain. Or when they do something else, they don't wash themselves and then they smell. I have to control time, circumstances, money, goods, and the life of those around me. I have to have power over others to the better, and I think the more power I have over others, then my needs are better fulfilled. That's why people go and want to have much money, and when they have all the money of the world, they want to become president. Because you want to be how? Powerful. You want to have power over others. And there is, I think it's a Hungarian guy who says he wanted to buy all the wells, all the water wells from the earth. You know why he wanted to buy them? To control all the humans. Because then he would be who? God. If the water wells would be his. You see how in our innermost those things come out when you have the power. Whoever is given power changes. Whoever is given power changes. And you know those tests that were done. So, because then you are not only wanting to play God and you try it, but then you really do it. and then you become a bestie. I mean, what do you call that? Or bestie? A beast. You become a beast. Yeah. So stress is the result of being a god. Anxiety is the result of being a god. Conflicts, war, and all kind of diseases is the result because you think you're a god. Depression, cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, inflammation of all kinds. All this come because of the wrong dependency on humans. Because you want something from those who have nothing. You make wells, they have no water. And how will you then go along in your life? You will die. You must die. So, that's why Jesus came to solve the issue. I spoke about this. He is our only hope, that through Him, through His victory of trusting His Father, we can destroy our selfish nature, that is, the wrong identity, and become free. The cross is made. The old man was crucified. Christ crucified him on the cross. So, who did He crucify? He crucified me. Paul said, I die together with Christ. So, on the 7th June 2003, I exchanged my life with His life. I received Him in my heart, and since then, I'm growing, but I'm growing slowly. Sometimes I would like to grow fast, but He is taking care so that one day I will be free from taking from humans and just living from God. And that would be then, how would I relate then to my wife and to others? As a child of God, would I still expect that others should fulfill my needs? No, my spiritual needs are satisfied by what I do. I don't need my beloved dead relatives because I don't need to take, I just give them. And you never have a mourning issue for the purpose to give. You only have mourning issues for the purpose to take. I'm not in need to be loved, respected, honored, because I understand when I exercise divine love, taking and giving, when I love others, when I praise, when I honor, then I am satisfied. Not when others are doing that to me. I am happy when I still can love others when they do me wrong in their deception of their mind. I do not judge them. I do not put myself as a measurement for all other people, but I respect them. I cannot control, I will not control time, money, people, animals, and other people. And I will not need any power over others because I'm a creature. How much stress would I have? None. How much anxiety? None. Did the Bible not say that fear is removed by love? Yes. Because, you see, we must avoid loss. But what we want and what makes us anxious is when we want to control the pilot of the airplane. Can you control him? No. That's playing something that you cannot. So anxiety disappears. Conflict, wars disappear, all kind of diseases, depression, cancer, diabetes, I just put a few there. They are going away because we are not dependent anymore on humans. Because we're dependent on God. We know who we are. But this is only possible, as I shared today, through the love of Christ, to the cross of Christ. Now, let's look a little bit to this. Is a complex slide with how we process in general our decisions. So the first thing is we need a source where we have to take our needs. The source must be always outside because we have no wellspring of water in us. You know, the esoteric people and other believers think that the source of love is in them. So they say you must just search yourself or open up yourself. See, there is a lot of teaching out there that they say just open up yourself and God comes into your life. You just open the door and He takes over. That's possessivity. That's devilish. We were made always to be active. The law says you must take and you must give. It's your action. The Spirit can never be passive. He must act. There is not such thing that you open the door and say, God, take over. That is possession. That is against God's righteousness. That is against His way of dealing with us. That's why God knocks at the door. He wants to come in, but He comes in by what I take Him in and how I apply the things. That's why the source, I have to take it from outside. And before I take anything inside, I must balance it if it is the truth. Because I have a balance, I have a scale that I have to fulfill. So my will is made to want these things. My will needs justice, freedom, love. It's not by choice. Now, when information comes in, it is according that I check it first. Does it fit my need or not? So that's the first thing I think that we check in our situation. And then, of course, it encounters storage. We have stored in our life, in our inner prior knowledge. We have beliefs. We have previous decisions. We have experience. And we have prejudices. Do we have prejudices? And I put the prejudices in the subconscious because there we have them. We are not aware of them. We judge people in split of seconds without even thinking, because we saw them. And if you associate a person that has no hair with someone who is suicidal, then he is suicidal just because he has no hair. Yeah? Or if you, I just give you a positive example. I was a few years ago in Romania, and I had to travel from one city to another about 3 hours with a bus. And it was not even a very modern bus. It was a decent bus. I don't know if you had air conditioning. But while I was working there in the bus, I did emails and everything. I always work. I felt so good, and I felt too good than normal. And I said, Lord, why do I feel so good? There is no reason to feel so good in this bus. There is nothing here. Why am I feeling so good in the bus? It was there. And I searched to find something why I felt so good. And then I always go to God and say, Lord, you must help me. I must find out why I feel so good. And then I remembered, in childhood, I traveled so with pleasure with the bus. And so that was just coming up, the memory from my childhood, that the bus was something to be happy with. And so in that memory, when I realized that this is a memory from my past, this is a storage, a good, a positive, to say so, prejudice, where you say, this is so good. It was unconscious to me, but I could make it conscious on the emotions that I felt. And I said, this is why I feel so good, because I associate the bus ride with my positive experience from my past. So there is a complex thing. It goes in splits of second. How that works exactly, I cannot tell you, because the Spirit is this. But I ask God if He is willing to help me to understand it better. And I have this experience. If it's needed to know, He will help me to know. Because I have to, and I can't always ask only Him, because I cannot read any books. Because I went to God and said, if you don't explain me how you have made us, and you made me a doctor, and how can I work? You must help me to realize and know how we function, because you know exactly. Because we are built exactly and wired as He wanted us to be. And so I want to know this. So when the information met my will, my need first, and then the storage and my belief and my experiences, then it goes into reasoning. That's still in the conscious, my mind. And then, of course, in the reason we have the highest thing, that is our conscience. Yes? Do you have a conscience? You know, when the conscience is broken, you're broken. Because that's the backing up, the highest level where you check yourself. An animal has no conscience. Yes? He cannot see what you did or not. He cannot see himself. But we as humans can see ourselves, and we have the written. Through what does God speak to us? Yeah. To the conscience, because here must be the conscious knowledge of the Lord. And if you watched, I gave a few days ago the cards with the Bible school that I do online, and we now speak about unity and what brings us all to unity, and in those presentations I have a few ideas where I share about the conscience and how it works. So, from reason, from going back to conscious and back, it comes to the subconscious where it meets identity. And if identity is I am God, then who is the truth? It's me. My reasoning. I am the measurement for the truth. And so from me it goes to trust in whom? In me or in other people. I could not make this three-dimensional. And from trust it goes, yes, when it's me, I trust Lucifer, people and animals. And from there it goes into motivation and finally decision, and then it comes into my body as yes and no. If I am a born-again person, then the cross kills in my heart the idea I am God, and the Holy Spirit brings me the new identity. I am a child of God. If that when the information then comes from will to storage, to reason to mind, it does not go to the wrong identity, but it goes to the right one. And if it meets the Holy Spirit, then I'm in a learning process. I am ready for new knowledge, for new beliefs, for new decisions, and I'm willing to be away from all prejudices that I have. And from there then, of course, it goes to reasoning, to conscious, and it comes back to my identity. And if I am a child of God, the law of God is my identity, and out of that, who will I trust? I will trust God, and trusting God, my decisions will always be right. This is the first time I did this, how I can say,
slide.
This slide. It took me a lot of time to think about it, but it will certainly develop like everything. You know, when I started 15 years ago to make pictures to my patient, how we work, it was just lines. And it developed to slides. And it was only, I just had one day a patient that was with me counseling in my early years, and she says, I keep all your pictures with me in my pocket, what I painted to her. And she said, I can show, oh, can you show that to me? I said, wow, I said, you could come now again, I have more. I learned more things to share. But it was amazing, this lady, she had it in her pocket so that she could remember because if I don't paint, I don't understand. So that's why I always, and it was for years. Now this is modern that I use slides. But 2 years ago, I still was painting and writing on boards. It's maybe the teaching better to write on boards, but my son said no one can read your writings, and it's not good presentation. So yes, I'm faster with this, but maybe the understanding lacks then a little bit of people have to study more deep. However, this is just an overview to see how complex our mind was made, our spirit was made, and how things work. And they work in split of seconds. They measured that an information comes in and goes to the decision, yes and no, in 4.5 milliseconds. That's a fast spirit, is it? That's so you cannot, So that's why I say associations. You see a picture and immediately you have a reaction. Because you have put that either in the positive, in the gain, or in the loss. That's why we must become very conscious about what we think, and our body is a great help because he reveals to us through the feelings if the input of the energy is right, body fit or not body fit. And so this is something that I like to do. But let's speak about something that is very crucial for us, and that is forgiveness. I want to end with forgiveness because I find out on many issues people can come and tell me I cannot forgive. And I know why. Because we understand forgiveness, in the usual understanding of forgiveness is, I am God, others did me wrong, and I graciously forgive them their wrong. Because I think they hurt whom? Me. Now, if the hurting is to a certain level, you might be able to forgive. But even though you forgive, you remain a victim. Because it was done unto you. Even though you say you're forgiven. And I had this patient, I learned everything from my patient, who went for 10 years to forgiveness seminars. And she knew, and she said, I have forgiven. But when I asked her if she was hurt or not, she said yes. And I said, you have not forgiven. Because you have not understood what forgiveness is. So let's see from the law what is forgiveness. Imagine we would be a creature of God and others do us wrong. What would we think? To whom do they do it wrong? They would say, you did wrong to God while doing wrong on me. I will ask God to have mercy with you and forgive you as he had with me. Because I know the one who hurts me hurts God's property. So Jesus knew that when he was crucified. That's why he did not ask he should be able to forgive. He asked his Father to forgive them because he knew it could only be done to God. You see, David, when he got to his mind as after he killed Uriah and took the wife of Uriah, he said in Psalm 51, against you only have I sinned. We must know that there is no sin against humanity. There is all sins that are done to God. Because everyone belongs to God. If you scratch the car of a person that owns him, do you do damage to the car or to the owner? To the owner. Because the car is not herself. The owner is the one that is damaged. Yeah? You feel it, but the owner isn't. That's why Jesus, read the Bible and read in Peter when he says he did not revile those who reviled him. He did not speak back to those who... Why not? Because he said, he gave the judgment in the hand of his Father, because the Father is the judge, because to him is it done, not to me. That's why forgiveness, you know, when God forgives us, you know what he says to me? You did no damage against me anymore. When I died on the cross, my whole past life, in which I did a lot of damage to God, of course, mostly not only in my ignorance, I knew that I did wrong, but I have no power to do it otherwise because I was a prisoner. And God took it all away. And he said to me, you did to me no wrong anymore. Because it's now on Christ. And I got his life. And if his life is my life, how much will God ask me to give back? Nothing, because it is in Christ repaired. Because he knew I did it all of my no choice. I was a prisoner. You owe me no debt anymore. This is that what God tells us when he forgives us. But this forgiveness, we must do the same with others. I shared with you that story of that lady that was abused by her father from the age of 18 to 18, 8 to 17. And now she's in her 60s. And she's very sick from the age of 17. And she heard about my seminars about 2 years ago. And she came, and I talked to her. Her past father abused her, and her father was not only a normal person, he was a pastor, and he pastored a long time the church. He's now in his 80s. And he never really said that what he did was so wrong. So you know, when we do the wrong thing, it's a hard thing to confess, is it? I mean, I at least have a hard time. I would never sin to not need to confess. Because to stand for what you have done, when you are a prisoner, you can stand for it and say, yes, I did it in prison, and I have to get rid of it. And I take that responsibility over because I could have gone to take help. You see, it's not when you are a prisoner, but if you abuse a child, you should know that's wrong. And before you do it, you should go to a doctor to treat you, to help you. But if you don't go, you are responsible for what you do. So when I see my weakness and I cannot do anything, then I have the ability to go and ask for help. And if I don't do it, then I'm responsible. Are you with me? Yes. That's why they must stand for what they did. But now this poor lady that suffered all these years, never forgetting what her father has done to her, never overcoming that, she destroys herself because her father cannot pay the debt that he owes to her. And it is too high a debt that she could forgive him. That she could say, oh, yes, I graciously forgive you. And so I shared with her and said, look, the way God forgave you, you must forgive him. You must tell your father in your mind, you did no damage against me anymore. You did it to God. And I would recommend you to go to him, to reconcile with him, that you might be safe. Will God save also abusers? Yes or no? Yes. Why? Because it's the same sin. You see, it doesn't matter if your taking brings you to a big thing that you do that is seen in society as highly wrong, or if it is a little lie, it will still destroy you. Because it does not matter how many sins you have or how many, one will just kill you eternally. That's why God is in the business of forgiving, of taking and cleansing us from sin, because it does not matter how big it is. He allows those big things in our eyes, that our eyes should be open to see it. Because people usually see themselves good. I saw myself 15 years ago, after my conversion, I thought, now I'm ready for heaven. Was I? What I see now today in my heart, I would say, I don't know how I could ever be ready for heaven. How I could ever trust God alone. To not be dependent on trusting on what I can do, or how much money I earn in my practice, or whatever it is. The hardest lesson for me to learn is to trust God. But I see it now. And I say, Lord, how could you choose me 15 years ago to bring me back to you? You knew all these things that are in my heart that I did not know. I would today never say, I'm ready. I would never dare, because I look to myself in a split of a second, I killed you. How could it be? That's why I won't trust my evil nature, because I know it must be killed day after day, moment after moment, to just be okay and not follow it. But when I follow it, I still say, Lord, have mercy, because I have to destroy it. But if God would have opened up my heart 15 years ago, I would have died if I would have seen what's there. I sometimes dream that I fight with other people, and I say, Lord, there must be so much aggressivity in me. Sometimes I grit my teeth during my sleep and say, there must be very strong aggressivity in me. I want to get rid of this. And I don't understand it, but I want to be whole. I want to get that thing out, because it's not from me. The identity is not from me. So I want that to say others, like God said to me, you did no damage to me. I want to say to anyone, you never damaged me, because I have exchanged my life. My life is Christ's life, and his life is my life. So that's why we have to say the one, when we really forgive, you owe me no debt anymore, because you did not do it to me. As long as you think it is done to you, you will always have the problem. Our little daughter, she's now 27. Last Christmas, as we were together, we had a conversation, and she said, she brought up an email that I wrote her 10 years ago. And she showed me just a few sentences that I wrote to her. She then decided to go against God, to not believe anymore in God, to quit her school, and she was up in Canada, and come back to Germany, but would not return to our house, but return to her mom's house, her biological mom, because she said, well, at your home we have to have worship in the morning and in the evening, and I don't believe anymore in God. So how did I feel? Was I happy? No. You know, I prayed that night when the airplane should start from Calgary to come back to Frankfurt. I prayed, Lord, I proposed myself to pray the whole night. But I prayed only until midnight, because I was too tired. I had to fall asleep. But I prayed and said, God, you will stop that airplane, that it cannot land in Frankfurt. He will just return back. Can God do that?
Yes, you can.
Yes, he can. No problem for him. He just changes the radar. But it didn't happen. I woke early in the morning. At 6 o'clock, I saw the plane landed. And then I went out in nature, because I always go out in nature when I can, to pray there. And I was upset. And then the thought came to me, and it was really a revealing thought. And I believed the Lord would make me clear. He said, if it would be after you, everyone should go exactly like you dictated. Did you say it right? You see, I'm a dictator. I love to dictate. It's my nature. And I think I'm a good dictator. If I said to my wife, if you would do what I say, you will be happy. That's the most simple way to be. That morning, God revealed my aggressivity. And if I would be God, I would not allow the evil. I would just stop everyone to do the evil. And of course, my daughter would have to stay with God. She would have to do the right things, and there will be no choice to not do it. I came back that morning, and I was another man. I said, Lord, this is a problem in my heart. So I wrote back then a few emails to my daughter, as you can imagine. How were they emails? Well, they were loving. I said, oh, my dear, dear love, because I always say them, my dear, dear girl. You know, I always repeat dear, dear. Other people's are just dear. But the people that I close to me, I said, my dear, dear. So they're close, double dear. So I wrote to that, but she didn't copy that and paste it in her pictures. But those sentences where I was, what doing? Pushing, forcing. And she wrote, she showed me those things and said, you are not the good guy like you think you are. Did it hurt? Did it? Yes. And I had immediately something on my tongue. But thank God, I didn't say anything. It just stopped from the heart to the tongue. And so she shared with me and she said, you hurted me. And not you only, also your wife and my mother and my father, because I was a minor. She was then 17 and a half. So she said, I was a minor, that's why you hurt me. Now I'm 26, I'm out of being hurt. So I said to her, my dear girl, when you once were hurt, you will always be hurt. If you once are a victim, you always be a victim. The only way to forgive is to understand you never were a victim. That's the only way that your mind gets free. And this was Christ. Christ was the one that came on this earth. Was he treated well? You could never... Christ was the only man that walked on earth that never needed to forgive anything that was done unto him. And he was not treated well. From his birth, they wanted to kill him. He had to flee to Egypt. He had to live in a very bad circumstance in Nazareth. They wanted to kill him when he came back after a few years, and so on. No one could do him a damage because he had no possessions. He didn't consider anything to be his own. Never took anything personally. He said, what you do to me, you do to my Father. And he also taught the disciples the same thing. He said, don't take it personally. If the people accept you, praise God because they accepted me. If they reject you, shake your dust off your foot, sandals, because they did it to whom? To me. I could tell you many Bible stories where people took it personally. And there is one great prophet, Samuel. Samuel was an old prophet, and the people of Israel came to him and said, your sons are not like you, and we need a king. Please give us a king. And Samuel recognized that the argument with the sons were just because they wanted to get rid of him. And Ellen White describes his struggle in his heart, that he would have wanted to say something, but he didn't say anything. And she said that if he would have said something, he would have brought a bad reputation upon the name he bare. So he went to God and complained to God. And how was God's response? Don't take it personally. They are not against you. They are against me. And since when are they against me? Since I took them out of Egypt. So God encouraged the prophet and said, do as they want. So he took never anything personally, and I think Samuel was tested at that time. He knew, I am a creature of God. All that is done unto me is done unto my Father. That's why Jesus never had to put force into others' humans' life. He could let Judas, if you would have a disciple, would you let him, if you could, kill himself? Would you let it happen? Jesus let it happen. And he had to pass his body as he went to the cross. And people would say, this is him. And this is his disciple. His body was broken there under the tree. And they had to see him when they passed by. Was that a temptation for Christ? You understand? It was his dear disciple. Did he love Judas the same like John? Did he make any difference? To say, I love John more than Judas? No. Because he loved them all. And he loved them all from the beginning to the end. But love, and now we come to the definition of love. Love has a definition, and that definition of love is you have maximum interest for the other person. God, or Jesus, who exercised divine love, had maximum interest for his disciples. And for who else? For us. Did he ever force his will? Human love has interest, but not for the other person, but in the other person. That's why we have to rule, dominate, force the good on others. That's why human love will always put force when things don't go according to our needs. So Jesus had maximum interest, but he had 100% liberty or freedom for Judas, for Peter, for John, because he never forced them to the good. He respected them correctly, 100%. He never forced the good on them. Were they ever indifferent to him? No. Human love, when they lose the interest to say, okay, go away, I don't want you anymore, then they want to become indifferent. But indifference is love. Indifference is no love. So what is the issue that the devil cannot and we must not do? Disease comes because we do not force the evil on others, but we force the good on others. This is why when you force someone to do the evil, you don't get sick. But if you force the good on others, you might get sick if God finds it good that you should earn or you should see what you do. So love must have these two items. It must die for you, but at the same time, it lets you totally free. You like that kind of love? I never found a human being until now that would say, I would like a person around me that is like this. But it's not about a person that is like this that should be around us, but it is about us to be that person. You see how I want to win the heart of the people around me? Yes, I have to show interest in their life. If I do not love my patient, would they come to me? No. And I know they won't be saved because I brought them a good theory of how we function and how the gospel works. You know why? What will in the end make them to take God and to take Christ? You know what it will be? It will be the love that they see in me. That's the power. It's not my words. Yes, my words, they appeal to reason. And I explain a lot to them. But what in the end will make the difference is that they see it's genuine in me. If they don't see that, it's all for nothing. Then you can have the best theory. You can say the truth from the beginning to the end. You can know the Bible by heart. And it still won't avail nothing. I'm so getting encouraged when a patient comes to me and say, you live what you teach. Not that I reached the point, but that they see it is reality. And even the best testimony is when your children tell you that. Even though they don't agree with you, they won't follow God. But when they can say that, no matter what you do, you are genuine and you are a person that is good to be around. Then God is in our life. And I want to be a person that is good to be around. I want to have an atmosphere of peace, of joy, of happiness around me. Because I know that would influence for the good. Because it must be shown in our life, this kind of love. And Jesus showed it. That's why he could say, I give you a new commandment, that you should love one another as whom? As I have loved you. So he had the love of his Father. That's why he could say, as I loved you, you should love others. That's why when we want to compel others to the good, when we want to force them to the good, we must know that that is devilish. That is devilish. It's the devil's spirit when you want to force the good. Yes? Imagine Jesus and the disciples just wanted to pass a village, and the villagers came out and said, please don't pass through our village because we are afraid of how I can say this, tensions, and could you avoid our village? And how did Jesus react? He said, no problem, I accept your... Yeah, did he have any feelings towards them, bad feelings? Did he? No, because he said, this is love, 100% respect. I came to save you, but if you don't want to, I respect it 100%. And I'm not angry. I'm not going to punish you for this and revenge myself. But how was the disciples? What kind of a spirit did they have? They said, Lord, this is not hurt. You are the King of heaven, or whatever they were thinking. They must make you a red line through this village. And if not, then let us pray that fire should fall from heaven and rather destroy them all. Great love, isn't it? This is John, the great John, that he wrote the epistle, the gospel. He wrote the 4 letters, 4 letters, 3 letters, and he wrote Revelation. This is a man that was changed or not by the grace of God. He was changed. But Jesus and God intentionally brought them to see their unloving thing. That if just a person pushes you and doesn't allow you to go through, would you not kill him? You see, I am so sensitive with my sensitive nature. If someone stops me, I hate it. Do you like it? If someone ignores me, it's even worse. This is playing God. And so I learned the spirit of love respects the other person to the end. I'm so happy that God is this love. And He is the only one who can be this love, because He's the only one who is independent. You can never be this love towards others if you're dependent on those you give this love. That's why I explain to my atheistic people, friends, I explain the existence of God according to the definition and our needs. I say, look, God is the only source because He's alone independent. That's why He can give you liberty. Of course, there is consequence. Liberty does not mean that you are independent. Yeah? I always get sick because I force the good. Or I get angry about the evil. And I would force then the good on those people. So, that's why God is independent of me. But the law still expects from you to exercise this love. If not, then you have headache, or migraine, or whatever you have. Because there is a consequence. The authority of love is not that God forces you. The authority of love is invitation, but it is conditional. And love is never unconditional, because if you don't exercise it, you die. Unconditional love means there is no law for love. That's why, you see, definitions sometimes mean a lot. Love is unselfish, but never unconditioned, because God does nothing without conditions. But we haven't understood that. Yeah? So that's why there is dependency. And on dependency there is condition. We must exercise this love the same way like we must eat and drink the right thing. That's the dependency. If we don't exercise this love, what happens with us? We die, we have headache, we have all this kind of thing. Because we are not able to do it. So we must, God can only produce this love. So we live in our relationships. So here is the conclusion of it. I must take from God, and then I give to my wife how much love? How much liberty does she have to spend all the money? All the liberty. Even though I tried to stop her several times. But it is her right on the money of God, like my right. But I said to my father, I said, it's your business to stop her by, not mine. And so, because no matter what you do, you try to force on others the good. That's why I should be how? Spiritually dependent or independent on my wife? Independent. You know, when I started to become independent and take from God and give to her, was that good for her? It was, but she didn't always appreciate it. I just tell you a small story. One day, after my conversion, I was out in nature and God remembered me that she likes flowers. And so I said, well, they cost nothing. You know, we always think on the money. And so I picked some flowers and brought them home. And I gave to my wife the flowers and her eyes went big. And then I made a mistake. I said, the Lord reminded me to give you the flowers. And in that moment, she got angry and she said, I don't want the flowers from the Lord. I want them from you. Yes, amen. And then I said to her, you don't know what you talk. Since when can I make flowers? Am I able to make flowers? No. So the next time and the next time, I brought the flowers, but I didn't do the mistake. I didn't say the Lord gives you the flower. No, I let her believe that it comes from me, because then she's okay. But about a year and a half later, it was spring and we were in Romania and I was out in nature and I found violets in the morning. And she loves these little violet flowers. And when I saw them, I said, go home to make my wife a pleasure. And so I took how much I could and I brought it into the room where we were staying there with people. And when she saw the flowers, she said, how good is the Lord? I said, you finally got it. Amen. So don't thank the others that they bring you something, but thank the God that He brought it to you. So let's make clear, we have nothing to give from ourselves. We always give that what we take. And if I take from a human, then I will not be able to let my wife do what she wants. Sometimes I told her she should think on me when she eats. Is that very loving? No. Oh, that was a woman who answered. They always are very keeping together, yes? They defend their own female. So, how would it be with my father? Would I give him the liberty to divorce my mom? Yes, I would not say, I would not judge him. With my mother, is she allowed to think different than me? Yes, she is. And can I love her still? I give her how much liberty? Total liberty. She can behave wrong. She can be sad. I can still love her because I'm independent. And I take the love of God and not from her. The children, can I love the children when they are not in the faith? You see, so many Adventists and Christians I meet, they are so sick because they want to force their children to be in the church. And I say, you have not understood it your own. How will you, that they should understand? When our two young girls, or two young children, then 17 and a half, and the other one was 19, they declared themselves to be atheists. how did I react? Oh, not only sad, I brought up my arguments. And you start to argue because I have good arguments that God exists. One is love. But I saw that all my arguments didn't bring any good. It made it worse. And so I went to God and said, Lord, what happens? I want the good. I want to bring them that what is right. And how can it be that it does not work? I always felt bad when I had arguments against them. And I thought, this cannot be, this is not right. And then the Lord gave me a thought. And that thought just freed me. He said, if you would love these children just for this life, if they would never be saved, would it worth loving them no matter what? And that thought just illuminated my mind. I said, yes, of course, let's love them just for this life. Don't think on eternity. Love them as it is now. It's worth it, is it? It's worth it because you have no pressure. And if it's worth it to love them for this life, you may save them for eternity. But if not, real love, let them die eternally. I found myself years ago that I was praying for my mother to not be lost, my mother, but I was not so inclined to pray for my father that he should not be lost. I could imagine myself to be in heaven without my father, but I could not imagine to be in heaven without my mom. And so I said, Lord, something is wrong in my mind. And so I prayed. I said, make me to be able to be without my mom in heaven, and make me to want my father to be in heaven as I want my mom to be in heaven. Because that's the right way to think. And God made it. I knew that love respects the choice of another person to 100%. Even if it's going to die. God would not be love if He would force us into heaven. But Christians would force all into heaven. They didn't understand who is God. Christians would be the most pleasant people if they would not have any more their force for the good. You see, our churches would be full. Because people would come to us and say, here is heaven on earth. Yes, there is rule, there is the law, there is dependence. But there is total liberty. We are not forcing anyone to do the good. And we respect them when they do the wrong. Yes, there might be consequences, but those consequences are not enmity, it's not violence, it's just business. You don't qualify. But we would not try to force anyone to do the good. We would be free. Imagine what a Christianity that would be. Imagine if this love would be the exercise of our daily life. People around us will sense it, would see it, and will say, this is right how this should be. You see, I see myself, I have so much force, I would convince you all of. And I see some things on my voice. My Lord must remind me, your voice is pressing. Now I like to be absolute, yeah. But absolute you can be without pressing, can you? You can just invite. You must not force. So, we have to let our children to be lost. Then we love them. If we cannot let them to be lost, we love them not. We agree? You must not. But this is the truth. Because God lets them to be lost, if it's so. And we can let our pets to die, if they want. Or if God puts them to rest, or puts them aside. Because people are suffering very much because they don't give liberty to the dog to die. So, this love must be and will bring us to full knowledge and to full capacity. Who can exercise this love is how? Let me read it. Or you know it by heart. I have a business card that I have in printing. And I just read you the things on the business card. They are written in a favorite chapter, 1 Corinthians 13. And it starts from verse 4. And because it sounds better to put my name instead, because it's a business card, of the word there, instead of love, I put Horst, and it sounds better. You know? It says so. Horst suffereth long. Does that sound good? Suffers long, and Horst is kind. To whom is Horst kind and suffers long? With the good one or is the bad one? Don't say both. Only with the bad one. With the good one, you have never an issue. You only suffer long with the bad one. You only need to be kind to the bad one. To the good one, you don't need that. Horst envious not. Horst vaunteth not itself. So he is not puffed up. Horst is not puffed up. Do you like that? Oh, it's a difficult thing. Horst doesn't behave itself unseemly. Seeketh not his own. This should make us clear. We give for the others, not for us. Love, Horst seeketh not his own. He is not easily provoked. One day.
Mercy.
Yes. One day. One day he's not anymore easily provoked. And he thinketh no evil. In German translation, this says he does not recount evil. So when he has forgiven, that is, he knows what happened, but if it is not done unto him, he does not count it anymore. That's how love is. Because when we forgive, we must not forget. That would be to be insane. We can remember it, but it was not done unto us. So that's why Horst thinketh not on the evil that was done, because it was not done unto him. Rejoices not in iniquity. So love has a ability to think and judge what is iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. Horst beareth all things. Horst believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Is that omnipotent or not omnipotent? Is it? Is that all power or is that not all power? If you can endure all things, if you can believe all things, if you can hope all things, if you bear all things, how much more can you do? And the best thing is, Horst never faileth. That's love. That's my business card. Anyone here who wants it? Let's put it into print. This is what I want to be. I want to be the man that God has on earth who loves us most. Yes, that's my goal. Is it a high goal? Yes, it is. And I travel around wherever God calls me to go, because I want to not be the only one who wants to be the most loving person on earth. Because I know back in the past, God had the most loving person on earth, that was Job. And he said to all heaven, you know, there were all the sons of God. That means all those who were responsible for all the planets of this universe were assembled together, and they had to look on one man on earth where God says, this is my man in your kingdom. Is that honor or is not no honor? In front of the whole universe, Job was the most honored man. And whom God's honored, I want that honor. Would you? I would like that honor, that he would say, he would take all his angels and say, look, here, this is a man that lives in the kingdom of darkness, but he's the most loving man that I have on earth.
Amen.
I believe, I say it's not good to be in competition, but this is good. Let's all try to give more than others. let's all do that which is coming out. And if love would be our motivation, joy would be our life, peace would be our life, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, and purity and self-control would be that. And you know what would he have as a result of that? It would be health in our bones. Because where is love, there cannot be disease. Where God lives, there cannot be things that are not working well. Because all the fruits of the Spirit is making us happy and fulfilled. In love, there is full knowledge and full capacity. So how much of you would like to become the most loving person here in this place? Okay. I promise you, it is a great challenge, because we have to fight the good battle of faith against our selfish nature. And love will win. The only true proof that we take from God is the ability to love and give liberty to others. That's the only proof that will be given in front of the earth. We won't be asked what was written in Genesis 1 or 7. We only will prove if love is the way we work. And if love is the way we work, God will say, it's my child. So I thank you for your coming this week, and I hope God will make an impact of our lives, and love will really make us happy and those around us.